I'm going to talk to you about cognitive dissonance. You might have heard that term before, and you might not have, but I guarantee you have experienced it if you have a difficult relationship. Cognitive has to do with your thoughts. Dissonance is the opposite of consonant. Consonant means that things are in agreement or in harmony. They flow together. Dissonant means that they are not in agreement. They are not in harmony. In fact, they are conflictual. It means that it's like playing notes on a piano that is out of tune and expecting the song to sound good, and it doesn't. It is painful to hear it, and it sounds horrible. That is dissonant. And consonant is you're playing the song and it all is beautiful and it flows together and you can tell it all fits. So thoughts and actions can be consonant or dissonant. Our thoughts and our actions can be in harmony or they can be out of tune. They can be not harmonious and they can be conflicting. This happens a lot in our difficult relationship when we believe something, but our actions are doing something else. It also happens when we believe something is wrong and we are tolerating it. And we sense it. We know inside of us that there is a conflict. It is not healthy. It feels stressful. It is confusing. But when we are out of harmony and when we are conflicting, unfortunately, we have to figure out what to do about it. And what we tend to do is go into denial, numb ourselves out, maybe by drinking or staying super busy or getting involved in a relationship that's not good for us, or becoming angry, blaming someone else, being super defensive. We rationalize and we justify and we make excuses or we pretend. All of these things are ways of handling cognitive dissonance, to where we are stressed in that we know we believe something, but we are doing something else. We believe it and we're tolerating something else. We believe it's wrong, but we're tolerating it. Or we believe it's right and we're not doing it. Or we're saying one thing, our words are saying one thing and our actions are doing something else. It's called hypocrisy, but it's also cognitive dissonance. So it is it's a very big deal in our difficult relationships. It is a huge struggle. It feels like a tug of war. It makes us feel bad about ourselves. It makes us feel, negative and unhappy and embarrassed and ashamed. And it's one of the reasons that we don't tell people what's going on in our difficult relationships. So we don't want to admit we know that's wrong, but we're tolerating it. We're letting that child live in our house while the child is on drugs, or we're allowing our husband or a spouse, wife, to go have an affair, and we're covering it up and pretending everything's fine and not confronting it. These are difficult situations. They're not easy to handle. Their difficult relationships are complicated. There's a lot of potential threats and loss and pain and hurt and hard choices. But let me give you an example. So the dissonance, we can feel it, see it in our thoughts. We can watch that war that's going on between our thoughts. We can feel it in our emotions, but we can also feel it in our body. Our bodies are affected by our emotions. They're affected by our actions. They're affected by our thoughts. And our body stores a lot. So one of the things you can do to help get an insight into how you're affected by what's going on in your relationships and in your life is to pay attention to your body. And the more you do this, the better you get at it. So I'll give an example to you of how painful cognitive dissonance really is. So I grew up in that dysfunctional home where my dad was an alcoholic and he was very abusive with, especially my mom, physically, verbally, emotionally, etc. And there was a lot going on that was not right. And then I had a difficult marriage that for many years I was trying to figure out, how was I as a Christian? Do I handle this? How do I confront my husband? Do I set a boundary? Do I go along? Do I have a right to say no? I mean, I had to start from scratch. I was 20, and my mother's example was, you submit and you tolerate, right? So there's been a lot of times that I have tolerated things, especially in the past, where it wasn't okay with me, but I didn't stand up. Tolerated things with my kids that I knew were not good for them, but I tried to say no and it didn't work. And then I didn't set a firmer boundary that completely stopped it. So one day, I have a somatic therapist. Somatic is body. And so I'm working on like somatic experiencing therapy, which is trying to get rid of stored trauma in my body. And so I'm paying attention to my body sensations, and some people are very disconnected from their body. Other people are kind of in tune. I tend to be very in tune, and part of that is because I have chronic illness that I have to manage, and I have to do a lot of stuff to make my body feel better. So I am used to paying attention to it. So one day I conveyed a situation to her in which I felt very good about my choice of how I responded to this, with strength and because it was clearly aligned with my values. And it was an area that in the way past, I might not have. And I just really, when you have a therapist, you go to your therapist and you tell her about successes, right? And so I did. And she asked me, she said, how does that feel to have that congruence, that feeling that you did what you know was right? And I just said, it feels really calming. It feels really good. It feels very empowering. It brings me some joy. I don't feel conflicted. And then, without knowing she was going to say this, she said, how does it feel to not do what you know is right? And but I couldn't think before my body reacted. And it literally instantly felt like somebody took a sword and jabbed me in the gut, to where I was just like hunched over, and my stomach went into an instant knot, and I had this huge pain that just went all over my stomach and abdomen. And I just had this feeling of just horrible feeling all over. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, how did I live with all those years of that cognitive dissonance? What was that doing to me? It was not good, and it was not healthy. So I hope you're kind of grasping that idea of that cognitive dissonance is real. Here are some examples. Knowing that abuse is wrong, yet tolerating abuse in your marriage, in your family, with your children. Knowing that your addictive behavior is wrong, yet continuing in it and not getting help. Knowing that it isn't good to have sex before marriage, but doing it, right? There's a split there. You got to do something with that split. Knowing that your marriage isn't healthy, but pretending that it is, and making everyone smiling and holding it all together, and covering up at church, covering up in your small groups, covering up in your family, and doesn't feel good. All of those things are examples, and I bet you could come up with a whole bunch more. So cognitive dissonance is feeling conflicted, uncomfortable, maybe even in physical and emotional pain, mental trauma, struggle, fighting back and forth, and then giving up and just saying, okay, fine, there's nothing else I can do. That's rationalizing. Or, well, I have to, because I have to stay because I don't have any money to be on my own. So you can defend, you can rationalize, you can justify. But we have to recognize the truth that it does harm us. And we want to get healthy, we want to address and recognize the dissonance, the cognitive dissonance, so that it gets our attention and we know we need to make different choices. So you want to pay attention to your body, your mind, your emotions, your thoughts, your emotions, even your spiritual conviction to help you to identify when you are tolerating things that are wrong, that go against your beliefs, and also when you are choosing to act in ways that are against your beliefs and what you know is right or wrong. James 2:14 says, "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Can such faith save them?" Okay? No deeds. So we need to have deeds. Faith needs to have deeds. James 3:9-14 says, "With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and we curse human beings who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth come praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water flow from the same spring? My brothers and sisters, can a fig tree bear olives or a grapevine bear figs? Neither can a salt spring produce fresh water. Who is wise and understanding among you? Let them show it by their good life, by deeds done in the humility that comes from wisdom. But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth." So it's an example. Those are examples of cognitive dissonance, believing one thing, but doing another. And that's not right. It's not supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be aligned. It's supposed to be cognitive dissonance is when this is how you know you should walk, and it's directly in contradiction to that. Okay. Congruity, being congruent, is when you walk and do what you know is right and what you believe. And it is a different life. It is peace. It is life. It is being free from that split inside of you. And it will lead you looking for congruence, walking in congruence will lead you to a place of making better choices, having boundaries, standing up for rights. It is a place of strength that you can go to when you are looking for that. So I hope this has helped you, and I hope you'll check out more of my podcasts and videos. So God bless.